this mysterious place where this boy has to find these seals of truth and he sometimes needs help from other people to find them. So you're taking me to the library to see a fictional adventure book. How's that going to change the dance? You'll see, he said, pushing open the library doors. Mrs. Friend, the librarian, sat behind the circulation desk. Annalee, I'm glad you stopped by. The winter edition of Style Teen arrived yesterday. I shelved it in the periodicals. You know where to go. She blushed. Thank you, Mrs. Friend. Mrs. Friend leaned toward Teo. Are you back to have a look at that special book you were showing me a couple of weeks ago? Yes, ma'am. Actually, I was wondering if I could borrow the key to show Annalee. Well, sure. I was just finishing some things up for the day, but I'm sure I can find something to do while you're up there. The book's right where we left it. Mrs. Friend lifted the key from around her neck and handed it to him. He thanked her and made his way up the stairs. This way. You have so many books here, Stokes said, following Teo and Annalee to the second floor. So many stories. I love this place. Teo stopped at the door and placed the key in the lock. The door clicked. He pushed it open. Annalee peeked over his shoulder to see inside the tiny dark room. The book's in there? Yes, it's special, like I said. He reached around the corner, flipped on the light, and entered the room. Annalee followed, curiously looking around at the dusty space. Remember, she has to bleed on one of the pages. Maybe poke her. I'll go and find something pokey. Stokes flew from the room. The idea of sticking Annalee with something sharp was unsettling, but he didn't have any other ideas. All right, so where's his book, she said, hands on hips. Here. He found the bookcase where Mrs. Friend had placed the old book and had pulled it off the shelf. It was large and heavy with a worn leather cover. The moment he held it in his hand, the tattoo on his shoulder began to heat up. His pulse quickened as his excitement grew. It was as if the book knew he was holding it. He laid the book on the floor and opened it to the same page he'd used to cross into the other world. It doesn't have any words, Annalee said. Teo rubbed his finger across the splotch of dried blood that coloured the blank page. The story I told you about in this book is real. It leads to another world. In the other world, I'm on a quest to find 5 seals. I already have the first one. He squirmed with each unbelievable word. The 5 seals will change everything. You're supposed to help me find the next one. She glared at him as if he'd lost his mind. I know, that sounds crazy. You aren't serious, are you? There's no way you can be serious. I've got to go. Stokes flew into the room and dropped a thumbtack into Teo's hand. No, wait, please, let me show you. He grabbed Annalee's hand and pricked her finger over the book. Ouch! She jerked away, but as she did, a tiny droplet of her blood landed on the page. I don't think this is a good thing to do under normal circumstances. Look, there it is. Why did you do that? She cried. You've lost your mind. She will see soon, Stokes said. He took a bite from the fruit he was holding, and with that single bite, he vanished. I'm sorry, I needed your blood, and I knew you wouldn't give it if I asked. Are you crazy or something? You cut me. She backed away from him. I'm going to report this. But then the book began to glow and she stopped. His pulse accelerating. It was working. The glow flooded out of the book and surrounded them in a warm light. What's happening? She cried, rushing up to him. The light twirled around them and the room began to fade from sight. All he could see was the white light. Teo, where are you? It's okay, don't be afraid. The lights around them dimmed to a low glow. Then they were gone. Chapter 3. Teo's hands pressed against the warm sand. A cool breeze brushed his skin and a sweet scent perfumed the air around him. He was back. He opened his eyes slowly, allowing them to adjust to the brightness of the sun. He lifted his body off the warm ground and sprang to his feet. A smile formed across his face as he jumped around in excitement. Yes, he squealed. We did it. We're back. He saw the staff Elian had given him lying on the ground, and beside it a leather strap. He looped the sling over his chest and gripped the wood. It felt good to have the staff back in his hands. What adventure awaits us next, old friend? He wielded the staff, striking an imaginary shatterkai upside the head. What's happening? A scared voice croaked beside him. Annalee sat up on her knees, looking around at a world he already knew, but which was totally foreign to her. She looked terrified, and he remembered the feeling. Don't be afraid. This is the world I told you about. This can't be real. This can't be happening. But it is real, and it is happening just like I said. She closed her eyes, her breathing heavy. She wasn't taking this well, and Teo didn't really know what to do next to help her calm down. He hesitantly placed his hand on her shoulder. Annalee. She pulled away from him and stood to her feet. Why are we in a desert? I don't understand why we're in a desert. We were just in the school. I must be dreaming. I am dreaming. This is a dream. I know how you're feeling. The first time I came here, I was alone and scared and had no idea what was happening, but everything's going to be okay. What did you do? She cried, spinning toward him. This can't be real. We aren't in the library anymore. No, we're still there, but asleep, I think. But we're also here in our dreams, sort of. At least that's how I think it works. So, we're asleep in the library right now. I think so. I don't believe you. Take me home. Wake me up. I don't care. Just get me back. This wasn't going how he'd hoped. I can't. Why not? I need your help. Oh, right. Something about a seal. That's absurd. She'd been listening. That was encouraging. Yeah, I told you I have a special quest. I have to find the 5 seals of truth that will save me from my fears. I discovered the first one. Look, he lifted up his shirt sleeve to show her the glowing white circle imprinted on his shoulder. The first seal. Annalee brushed her finger over the circle and then jerked it away. It's hot. Teo lowered his sleeve, proud of his accomplishment. When we find the second seal, we can go home. She surveyed the desert. Not that I understand a bit of this, or that I believe you, but let's just say this isn't a dream and the second seal can get me home. Why me? Why do you need my help? I don't really know. She threw her hands up in the air. You brought me here and you don't know? Talia said you had to come with me. And who's Talia? He's a mystic, sort of my teacher. He told me I'd need help finding the next 4 seals, that someone from my world would be chosen to help me. I guess you were chosen. That's why I had to get you to the library and get your blood into the book. It's what makes the book work. Annalee placed her hands over her face and shook her head. He didn't blame her. It was a lot to understand. She lowered her hands. I still don't understand. Let's find Talia. He has a way with words. But he didn't know how to find Talia or how to get out of the desert. Where was Stokes when you needed him? Teo scratched his head. In the distance, cliffs rose from the desert. It seemed like their best option. Follow me, he said with as much confidence as he could fake. He hoped he looked like he knew what he was doing. They began their trek across the sands, with Annalee reluctantly following and asking 100 questions. Who lives here? What do they look like? Explain those seals again. Are we lost? How long will we be gone? Are you sure this isn't a dream? How did you find the first seal? He did his best to answer, but every explanation he gave sounded absurd, so finally he told her to ask Talia. If only the Rouge were here. Why hadn't they found them yet? Surely Stokes had told them that they'd crossed over, unless something had gone wrong. Teo knew that if they didn't find Talia soon, Annalee would plop down in the sand and sit there until she woke up. He needed her. He needed her to help him find the second seal. She'd finally fallen silent. Teo just hoped Annalee didn't completely hate him. Maybe if she could see him use the staff. His attention wandered to thoughts of the adventure awaiting them. Would he have any chance of seeing Elion again? He desperately hoped so. Would he even see the Roosh? Would he encounter the Shadowkai? The memory of those nasty bats made him cringe. Teo! He turned back and saw she'd stopped. Yes? What's that? She pointed to the sand 50 feet away. A large shadow of a bat darkened the sand. Shadowkai! He grabbed Annalee's hands and ran toward an outcropping of rock to their right. He might have looked up to see the Shadowkai above them, but he dared not, and he didn't want her to see them either. Looking into their eyes could be dangerous. He should know. Hurry! Their feet pounded against the sand. The sound of the Shadowkai's flapping wings became louder as the shadows drew near. There was more than one, maybe dozens. He reached the rock. He pulled her behind it, slammed his back against the stone, and tried to quiet his breathing. What's happening? She cried. He put his hand over her mouth and motioned for silence. She nodded and he pulled his hand away. What's happening? She whispered. Shadowkai, the evil black bats I told you about. You never told me about evil bats. He was sure he had, but then again there was a lot he hadn't told her, like the time he'd been captured by the Shadowkai. Let's just say they're not our friends. Don't move. Annalee's eyes grew wide. Her fingers dug into his arm as she clung to him for protection. No, see, that's where they're hiding behind the rock, and there's the Shadowkai there. But the sound of flapping wings had stopped, which meant one of two things. The Shadowkai had either flown by, or they'd landed and were creeping toward them. Teo pressed his head against the rock. He took a deep breath and mustered his courage. You can do this. You're the son of Elion. With his staff held tightly in his hand, he peeked around the corner of the rock. There sat 3 white bats with giant green eyes. Oh, relief washed over him. He ran toward the Roosh and threw his arms around the first of them. Oh my, Michael said, returning his embrace. We missed you, Teo, Gabble said. Where have you been? I thought you were Shadowkai. How silly and insulting, Gabble laughed. I look nothing like those ugly things. I had to find them first and then we had to find you, Stokes replied. Well, I'm glad you did. Where is Annalee? Annalee came out from behind the rock, shaking. Send me back. Wake me up. She backed up, staring at the Roosh, frightened. Wake me up right now. I'm guessing this is her, Gabble said, waddling toward her. There's no cause to be afraid unless you're a Shadowkai in disguise, in which case you'd better run for your life. She grabbed a handful of sand and flung it at Gabble. Stay away! The sand caught Gabble full in the face. He sputtered, swatting his nose. She flung another handful of sand. Gabble stumbled, tripped over his own feet, and landed on his tail. Teo knew that she was frightened, but that didn't keep him from laughing. Michael and Stokes quickly joined him, their laughter pouring out of them as they watched Gabble struggling to get to his feet while wiping his face. She grabbed another fistful of sand. Annalee, stop, Teo said. These are my friends, not the Shadowkai. She lowered her arm, blinking. I don't care. I want to go home. But you may, my dear, Michael said, just as soon as you find yourself. I am Michael, this is Stokes, and the one you attacked is Gabble. We are Roosh, not Shadowkai, and we're here to help you find yourself. What do you mean, find myself? She demanded. I'm right here. You'll see, my dear, the Roosh said. You'll see soon enough. Annalee inched over to Teo, frowning. I don't like this. I don't like it one bit. He leaned into her. But aren't you a bit curious? Don't be ridiculous. A talking bat is telling me to find myself. He shrugged. Okay, but just so you know, these 3 talking bats are the bravest and most loyal friends anyone could have. They helped me on my last quest.